Congressman, is that where the auction rate market
Yes.
crisis gets solved?
Yes.
Because I know I'm on the board at Northeastern University. They almost came to a grinding
Very good
halt.
point on that. Here's the deal. Until now, we have thought that investor protection was only for small people. And in fact, the rule was, the way they protected people with hedge funds was, if you had at least $1 million to invest, you didn't need protection. Well, you have at least $1 million to invest. Yeah, when things are that bad, nobody can protect themselves against that. But there's a tension between treating the investor fairly and protecting the institution. And I don't want investor protection to be swallowed up by concern for systemic liability, so I want that to be separate. But it's credit default swaps, and what's happened is these people have there are no rules, there's no leverage restrictions, they get way over leveraged. That's why Bernanke and Paulson kept jumping in, because some of these people owed so much to so many other people that if they failed, as they said, it wasn't that they were too big to fail, they were too interconnected to fail. And what we need to do is to find ways, like both Roosevelts did, to let the innovation flourish without the abuses. So that means limiting the leverage, much more openness. Now, we had ways we thought we were going to do that. The rating agencies were going to do that. Quantitative models were going to do that. They didn't work very well. So we need to have some, and that's the systemic risk regulator. Now, what we need to do is to find for investment banks, hedge funds, private equity, the kind of rules, capital rules, supervision, openness, trading on an exchange, that work for other things.
At a very Main Street level, there is an argument that, especially in Massachusetts, the housing market for years was fueled by the subprime. The values of the homes went up, the number of sales went up, as these loans became available. Now putting these caps on, is there a danger? And part two of it is, how would you deal with it of younger people not being able to afford the 20% down?
Good point. First of all, that's why I want to keep an FHA and a Fannie Mae, and a Freddie Mac. I don't want them to make bad loans, but I want them to be able to help with the secondary market for good loans. Secondly, for people at the lower end in particular, we have significantly increased the role of the Federal Housing Administration, the FHA. When the Bush people came in office, well, in 2002, it issued something like 700,000 guarantees. By 2006, it was down to 290,000 guarantees each year. They now said that's a mistake. So going forward, I'd say, first of all, some of the people who are getting subprime loans shouldn't get loans, they shouldn't own homes, they can't afford to, and it's in nobody's interest to make them to pretend. Most of them can, even most subprime loans are being repaid. We want them to be able to go to the FHA. The FHA will check them out. They'll make sure that they have the income they say they have. For the FHA, you get a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, and the mortgage is guaranteed so that the rate comes down. Now, in addition to that, we are talking about expanding the low-income housing tax credit and the affordable, the taxable bonds. So we're trying to help build rental housing as well. The other point, though, was this, from the working people here, that's the silver lining in the sky. House prices are down. I mean, they were way too high. We're not trying to keep them, we don't want them to drop too soon. But the biggest answer is that I want Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to continue to be able to securitize above subprime, and we're going to have the FHA for people at the lower end. I think 2 years from now, a home for the people you're talking about will be much more affordable than it was 2 years ago, when we were at the height of the bubble going up too much.
The stimulus package that you're talking about now, the prior one, $600 for everybody.
Yeah. This will be more targeted. There will be a tax. I think there'll be a tax reduction, but first of all, it won't be temporary. From the economic standpoint, if you're in tough economic times, people are more likely to save than spend a one-time deal, and you want to get this spent. So we're talking about a reduction in the rate that might be X $100 a year, but going forward. Secondly, it won't be for everybody. It'll be targeted to middle and lower income people, and it'll phase out as you go up. You never want it to be where if you made a few dollars more, you'd be a little worse off. So it phases out. And then, as I said, I believe the answer to that a year from now, so the deficit doesn't get totally out of control, is you start reducing military spending and you raise taxes, increase the taxes on hedge funds, the so-called carried interest, So they gotta pay the income tax rate, not the capital gains rate. They get a capital gains tax rate for managing other people's money.
So the average taxpayer shouldn't expect a couple of $100 in the mail come Christmas time from the government?
Well, one, it probably isn't gonna get done until January, because we're gonna pass it in November. The Senate may still filibuster it until January. But there are ways to get it done more quickly, and it may be, it's not a rebate, it's a reduction in what's owed, but there may be ways to speed it into the system.
Do you think that the first time around?
You might be able to reduce withholding, for instance.
Do you think that the first stimulus worked the way you guys envisioned it?
Yes, in that it gave a temporary boost to spending. The problem was that the economy was weaker than we thought. So, I mean, clearly things that second and third quarters were better than they otherwise would have been. I think there's general agreement on that. But it turned out that because of the credit crisis and everything, there was more weakness in the economy. So it worked well as a one-shot deal, but one-shot deals don't work well.